What's good, everyone? Logan Stern here, and tonight I'm just going to make a quick little video about a commonly asked question, which is, can you lose fat and build muscle at the same time? So, it's a very common question because it's something you see a lot of different answers to. Some people are all for just trying to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, essentially recompositioning. Some people are for bulking and cutting. Some are for like main gaining, or gaintaining, whatever you want to call it, which is where you slowly add muscle on while not gaining any fat. So the thing is that there's all these different approaches towards it, and most of them work to an extent. But the answer I'm going to give you guys, if you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time, is yes, especially under certain circumstances, but it may not be optimal for you based on several factors. So there's several different kinds of people where I would say trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, either if you're just doing like building muscle while you're cutting or doing a recomposition at maintenance. I would say there's several kinds of people where it's optimal. So the first kind is going to be a beginner trainer. So someone who's just first started training. So the reason why they're going to be able to do this is because they're brand new to the stimulus from weight training. Essentially, they're going to be able to easily make gains kind of no matter what, whether they're in a deficit, calorie surplus, or maintenance. And what I think you should do is, I think this, trying to just maintain your weight and trying to recomp, I think this is actually a pretty good strategy if you're a beginner lifter and you're at a somewhat healthy body fat range, but you're not really lean yet. And at the same time, you're not really overweight. You're in the 15 to 25% range. Healthy body fat range, but you want to lose some fat and build some muscle. So I think this is a good approach. Second kind of person is going to be someone who's on drugs or PEDs. So steroids or SARMs. When you're on steroids or SARMs, you're going to be able to easily build muscle and lose fat at the same time. So it depends how advanced you are. Again, if it's your first cycle, then yeah, you can do this. I don't know much about this stuff, but if you're enhanced, it's easy to do this. That's all I know. Third is going to be someone who's I'm also basing this off my experiences with people I've seen be able to do it, and based off my experience trying to recomp or build muscle and lose fat at the same time. So a third kind of person is going to be someone who's very, very active. Typically a beginner or intermediate though. I found it a lot with athletes. I've seen it. I've seen people who lift weights a lot, but also have active lifestyles. They play a sport and they slowly gain weight over the course of a year. Essentially, they build muscle without gaining fat. So I believe that this is because, one, they're eating a very minimal surplus. Two, their sport or activity kind of prohibits them from putting on fat. Let's say you train a lot, you eat in a very small calorie surplus, but you also swim a lot. Your body's not going to want to gain fat, so it's going to only really gain weight in the form of muscle because you're kind of self-regulating the calorie surplus with your appetite. And I've just noticed that a lot with active individuals that start lifting weights. My brother's a good example. I think he gained 10 or 15 pounds this past year and a half. He didn't put any weight on. He runs a lot. He also lifts a lot. He worked a few active jobs, so he's a good example of this. Fourth kind of person that can lose fat and build muscle at the same time is going to be someone who's overweight. So essentially, maybe regardless of experience level, they are overweight. So it's going to obviously there's going to be diminishing returns if you're more advanced or intermediate, but if you're obese or overweight, you're over 30% body fat, you're not going to really have a hard time trying to maintain muscle when you're cutting. And you may be even able to easily build it. If you're a beginner, you'll be able to easily build muscle and lose fat at the same time because your body has so much energy from the extra stored fat that can be converted. Okay, so final kind of person that can build muscle and lose fat at the same time easily is going to be an intermediate or advanced lifter that's returning back to training, and they're either training with new stimulus or they're rebuilding old muscle because of muscle memory. So muscle memory is essentially a phenomenon where once you get your muscles to a certain level of strength and size, it's much easier to rebuild the second time around. There's different theories behind it, but the dominating one is because once you train that muscle to that level, you acquire new muscle nuclei in it. So that makes it easier to rebuild lost muscle. So if you're an intermediate or advanced lifter, you had to take like a layoff because of like work or life or stress, or you just gave up, or you had an injury for a few months and you lost a bit of muscle, you'll be able to rebuild the muscle relatively quickly. It's actually pretty simple, and I've actually been an example of that myself lately. So I would consider myself like an intermediate lifter, maybe like advanced in some areas, but overall like a later intermediate lifter. So I have the past few months, like in March, I kind of like hurt my back a little bit, and I made the mistake of like not training like at all for a bit, and then I didn't train like hard at all. I totally like slacked on training for a couple months. As a result, I definitely lost a little bit of like hardness in my muscles. I don't really know if I lost much muscle, but I did lose some strength at some points, and the past like 2 months I've been like getting back into it, and I found that I've actually been getting leaner while still gaining weight. I think I was like 147 then, now I'm like 150. I'm definitely leaner. Like I have more visible striations, I have more vascularity throughout my body, and I would say I was probably like 14% body fat then. I would say now I'm like in the 12-ish range, like 12 to 13 range. But I do think that it is absolutely possible. I mean, I've seen it myself as an advanced intermediate lifter right now. Anyways, those are the kinds of people that I recommend they try to lose fat and build muscle at the same time. Like they can either do it through a recomp or do it when they're in a calorie deficit, or they could do like main gaining or gaintaining, whatever you want to call it, where you just like don't really gain any body fat, very slowly gain muscle. Now, the thing is that this isn't always the best optimal approach, right? If you're someone who's overweight, like you're obese or overweight, like very much, you're probably going to want to just lose weight first, lose some body fat first. And you're going to be able to actually build muscle while you're losing fat because you're overweight. So if you're in this situation, I don't recommend you try to like stay the same weight or recomp. I recommend you go on a cut. Like let's say you're over, I think anyone over like low 20% body fat, I recommend they go on a cut. If you're an intermediate lifter or advanced, like you're in the 10 to 20% body fat range, like whatever your preference is, your goals, it's up to you what you do. And on the flip side, if like you're a person that's underweight, where you're unhealthy, or you have extremely low body fat, I don't recommend you do this approach. Or you definitely need to gain weight now and go on like a lean bulk instead. Now, if like you're an intermediate lifter and like you're at a healthy, like you're at a lean body fat percentage, like ideally 10 to 15%, but you can go up to 20% if you want to. It's up to you based on your preferences. Then you can go on a lean bulk based on your preferences and goals. And I think this is a better approach, because I'm not saying like go on a dirty bulk and get a lot of fat, but I recommend a small calorie surplus, like 100 to 300 calorie surplus per day, and this will amount to like 1 to 3 pounds of weight gain per month. And doing this, you won't get fat. If you top things off somewhere in the 15 to 20% body fat range, you'll still actually look, compared to the average population, you'll still look leaner than average, and you'll still look in shape. Sure, you won't be super lean, you won't be shredded, but you'll still look good. And then you can just do like a short cut and you'll be fine, you'll have more muscle. That's just what I recommend. And one thing I hear about a lot is that an argument against like lean bulking now by a lot of YouTubers, which I actually agree with them on a lot of stuff, but like Greg Doucette, for example, or other ones, they recommend like doing like main gaining or gaintaining. Essentially, if you actually look at their definition of it, it's kind of like a very lean bulk. Like the other day, Greg posted like some guy who gained like 20 pounds in a year and said he main gained. He really did a lean bulk. Essentially, to gain any weight, you have to be in a small calorie surplus. So when you're at this point, I recommend just doing a small calorie surplus. Anyways, that's essentially what I recommend. Like I said, if you're like in any of the situations with an intermediate lifter, like I think you should either try to focus primarily on like cutting and losing body fat, or doing a lean bulk where you very slowly gain weight. That's what I recommend. If you're underweight, you need to gain weight, then definitely go on lean bulk. If you're overweight, like you're pretty high body fat percentage, you want to lose some fat, then definitely just try to focus on losing fat, and you'll actually be able to build muscle at the same time. But if you're in any of the groups, so you're an intermediate lifter, you're in a healthy-ish body fat range, you're not really lean yet, then definitely I recommend you try to recomp and lose fat and build muscle at the same time. If you're on PEDs, it's definitely a possibility too. If you're overweight, like I said, it's also a very well possibility. And if you're doing a new training stimulus, like maybe you're intermediate or advanced, but you're doing like new stimulus, you could maybe expect this a bit. And 5, if you're intermediate and advanced, but you're coming back after like a training layoff because you've been off and you're essentially regaining lost muscle, and it's going to be very easy to regain that lost muscle. It's easy for your body to do. And also active individuals, like people who are very active, they might be able to pull this off too, like losing fat and build muscle at the same time. And of course, there's people with great genetics that can easily do this. You have to kind of learn this yourself. I can't really tell you how your genetics are, just like based off like a little bit. But yeah, guys, that's what I recommend if you're wondering on this question. Can you lose fat and build muscle at the same time? Yes, you can, depending like on where you are and on the group site and like different kinds of people, like I said. But it may not be the optimal approach based on like your experience level and other factors. But that being said, that's all I have to say today, guys. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all in the next video.